Hello, lovely Her Drive listeners. We are so happy to have you here today. And as always, all of our guests are extremely unique and experts in their field. And I am so honored for today's guest to be here and share her breadth of research and understanding and programming and all the books that she's authored and just like tap into a little bit of that magic that is being created in the ways of helping people better understand themselves and work better within the brain. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Laurel Mellin. She is the founder of Emotional Brain Training and is a two-time New York Times bestselling author, a health psychologist, and someone who developed emotional brain training as a professor in the School of Medicine at the University of California, San Francisco. So hello, welcome. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. It's happy to see you.
Likewise, you are so stunning, obviously so extremely intelligent. And I just want to dive right in initially. What is emotional brain training? And then I would love to dive into your story and how you came to be so knowledgeable on this topic.
Well, beautiful. Well, what is emotional brain training? When we walk through our day, we are told to use our thinking brain, and we have to figure out what to do, and we may have to make decisions, and then we have to plan things. And what happens is that brain is not doing very well right now. Not doing very well because we're in a stress pandemic, and the thinking brain gets kind of frazzled. And what happens is the body naturally switches to the emotional brain and puts it in charge. So we're now driving along thinking everything's fine because all we have to do is be mindful, think positive thoughts, analyzing things. But because the world is so much more stressful, biologically, the brain says, this isn't going to work. Thinking's not going to work. We're going down to the emotional brain, the brain of love and connection and stress and survival. So all of us are now thinking that we can figure things out, but actually we just need to make a slight shift. And that is to downshift to trusting our body where we where we experience our emotional brain and using exceedingly simple skills. And what happens is when we don't feel good, for any reason, I mean, maybe we're aggravated, maybe we're hungry, maybe we're lonely or whatever that is, anxiety, depression, we immediately use these very simple skills and we spiral back up out of that stress to the state where our brain is so connected, so wise that we can basically solve any problems. And if it gets in the way, it's hard to like move through our emotions, then that means it's a circuit in the brain, and we rewire it. So essentially, this is an easier way to conduct your life and a modern form of neuro-scientific psychotherapy that you can do yourself. You have to be in a small group. That's why we have telephone groups of 5 people with a provider, because the emotional brain just loves to be around other people and it changes much. So you get into a telephone group and you start learning how to use your emotional brain so you don't have to think so much, make so many lists. Essentially, when you use your emotional brain, it clears away the chemicals and the bad ideas and the drives that are in the stress brain. And it brings you back up to what we call joy, which is also a flow state. Your best cells biochemically, it's like a health elixir. And in that state, everything goes well. And so you don't have so many problems and everything doesn't seem so complicated and you just get into your flow. And so it's a way of healing trauma from the past, unhealthy habits like eating, drinking, spending, relationship stress, all the things that get us upset are because we're running at the bottom of our brain where you have to process your emotions and we don't have the toolkit to do it. So EBT says, okay, here are the tools. You use them with a few other people once a week in a half-hour group, and then there's more support. And what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself in that flow state almost all the time.
Okay, I'm ready. Sign up. Oh, I am very mystified by what you're sharing. It sounds so beautiful. And I'm really curious to dive in more to this practice and hear a bit more about it. But I would love to know a little bit more about you and how your life's journey has brought you into this this magic is what it seems.
Well,
Obviously backed by science, but it feels like
it's magic. Well, most of us in the healing professions have our own problems, right? And that was true for me. I had depression and I had that overeating, craving, binging thing as a kid. And I went into nutrition and thinking it was a nutritional problem. It wasn't. And I've got lucky. I got a position at the University of California, San Francisco School of Medicine as a faculty member. And they had a grant where they needed to have a nutritionist. And so I fulfilled that. But they didn't know what to do with me. And I had a wonderful boss. So I started doing my own research.
okay.
And I started to try to find the root cause of why we overeat. And it didn't take me long because there was research published in 1940 that shows it's about connection. It's that
Okay.
emotional connection. So I was 28, I'm 75 now. And I said, oh my gosh, I can teach the skills of connection. The
Mm,
emotional skills, well, the rest is history. What happened was because with the university, you do research, right? Well, you always think something's going to go well, but you don't really think it will. Well, this time, when we were using these emotional EBT skills, the early forms of them, the parents in these programs, or the parents and kids, they had weight problems. They came in and said, what have you done to my child? They don't even care about the extra food anymore. They just want to go out and play and they're happy. And so I knew at that point that I had to dedicate my life to finding out. And it would take 30 years after that before the neuroscience showed exactly why EBT works.
wow.
So it's been
Fascinating.
quite a journey.
Yeah. Well, I love that you share this. So thank you so much. The you say that emotional eating is associated with connection, and does that mean that we eat when we feel disconnected and we're trying to find some form of connection? So we go to food.
That's exactly right. Some
Mm.
people feel numb, people go on a big high. Oh, well, no worry. And some people go low. But it's more than that. It's not a psychological problem. This is really important. Is most of us, you know how many diagnoses there are in psychotherapy? I mean, and
Yes.
we're getting sicker and sicker. So if you just wiped out all of current psychotherapy, and you just say, okay, everybody, why are we doing so much with medications and therapy and people are only getting more depressed, more anxious, or they're taking so many medications, they're numb? Why is that? It's because the root cause of chronic diseases, obesity, mental health are little tiny circuits in the emotional brain. There's a little sac there about the size of a peanut. It's
Mhm.
called an amygdala. And our circuits that tell us how to feel, what to think, what to do, and control our biochemistry, whether we're dysregulated and stressed out or whether we have great chemicals going on, are in this little amygdala. EBT is the only method that gives people the skills to control their amygdala.
Wow.
And let's say that, so once you learn these skills, you have them for life. You have to be in a group because it's the emotional brain is the social brain. When you get alone, you just won't do it. If you're in a little group with 5 other people on the phone, completely confidential with an EBT provider, in about a month or 2, you're going to say, why doesn't everyone do this? In about 4 months, you will have changed so many circuits in your brain
Mhm.
that you'll be running at a very different mindset. And then you can continue with the program if you want. But so I want you to think anytime you're saying, I have this issue with my husband, that's a circuit.
Mm.
I have this bad mood I get into. I procrastinate. I'm perfectionistic. I take care of everybody but myself. You know what? When you use words for it, what do you do about that? You're going to have an issue the whole rest of your life. In EBT, it's action oriented. You say, I have a complaint. I people please. Let's say it's I people please. So you actually use the app with someone listening. It just takes 5 minutes. It's not like a long therapy thing. It's 5 minutes, and you complain about it, and then you express a few feelings, and your brain, your unconscious mind, where these drives and circuits are located, opens up like a flower, and it actually bubbles up to your thinking brain the exact reason you're doing it, the exact words from your unconscious mind. If you did it off the top of your head, it would be worthless. But because it bubbles up from the actual circuit in your brain, then you have that information and you use it with the tools to weaken and erase the circuit. And what's so exciting is we never ask anyone to change. Let's say it's food, because we know that EBT is the only method that's been shown to create lasting weight loss. Let's say somebody wants to change their food. They start thinking, I shouldn't eat that anymore. And in EBT, they say, go ahead and eat it. Eat as much as you want, because the problem is not your hand reaching for the food. The problem is there's just a little circuit that was put in your brain sometime when you're in stress through no fault of your own. And we're going to go after that circuit. We're going to teach you how to do it because it's really fun. And everybody else in your little support group is doing it too for whatever circuit they're working on. And we're going to teach you how to essentially race that circuit. And you're going to keep focusing, I don't care what you eat, on the circuit. And you'll know that the circuit was erased when you notice you have no interest in eating the extra food. And that's evidence so it can be lasting. So that the internal dialogue about food is gone, and instead you feel peace inside.
That's really fascinating to me. It's almost like you don't even realize you're changing until it's over. Like it's done. That behavior has shifted
Exactly.
significantly. Very interesting. So how does this how does this modality work? You're explaining like it's within groups and things. You're going after the particular circuits, but in the simplest way, like how is the neuroscience now showing how EBT is working? Can we dive into that a little bit
Yeah,
deeper?
sure. The neuroscience is this, that, I mean, it's very sad. So I'm saying it to you I want to warn everyone. This is very, very sad. Um, the neuroscience, particularly the research from New York University, they couldn't figure out at NYU why we were using cognitive behavioral programs, health education, and mindfulness, which is supposed to work, and all of the problems that they were treating were getting worse. So they said, we think that the current way of approaching this is wrong, that you can't think your way out of a binge, that it's an emotional circuit problem. And so they did a test and they found that there's something really sad about mindfulness, cognitive change, trying to figure things out, which is it absolutely works when you don't need it. So when you're not in stress, when you're feeling great, you say, "Oh, I'm going to give myself a few uh, positive thoughts." You say, "Really, that works? See how great I feel?" That's not life anymore, because it's a stress pandemic now, and everybody's stressed out. Most people, are not living at the top of their brain where their thinking brain's in charge. They're living where their emotional brain's in charge, and boom, it stopped working.
Mm,
So
mm,
right when people need the skills, they don't work, and then they just blame themselves, and they stay the same.
yeah.
So what EBT does is it does something pretty strange. The circuit, what's a common problem? Like overeating, okay? So let's say that at one point, what happened was, like for me, I was 11 years old. I'd been bullied at school. Come home. My mother was there, but I didn't know how to talk about it. And there were cinnamon rolls in those packages with the white icing on the table. And so I ate 3 cinnamon rolls. And when I did that, I knew I was bad because my father was diabetic. You're not supposed to do that. What I didn't know is, this is important. I was in something called fight or flight, right? So there's a fight or flight circuit there. When those circuits are activated, they gobble up anything you do. So it gobbled up my eating circuit, stuck it in there, and I woke up the next morning because I didn't process it that day. So it puts it in long-term memory, and I had a biochemical drive to overeat. Okay, so you can only change that drive to overeat by separating fight or flight from the food. So that thing that got glommed together through no fault of our own, creating biochemical drives, and it's whether it's eating, drinking, getting depressed, getting anxious, people pleasing, whatever it is, the circuits actually pull it apart, so that no longer are you driven to overeat, and so you go back to what's just healthy, and that goes for moods, relationships, thoughts, the whole range of possibilities. So it's called, in terms of science, it's called a survival circuit. So everyone has 4 of these circuits, usually a mood, a relationship pattern, a work pattern, um, something that they get stuck in. And so you come into your group, and the first thing, you never have to do anything. You just come in, it's anonymous. You're in a telephone group. No one knows who you are. but the groups are very close because everyone has the same circuits and everyone's learning the same process. You just start rewiring circuit after circuit until you feel in a state of connection, you're securely detached, and you're as happy as you want to be.
Mm. And you said like it's a really quick process. Would you say 1 month up to 4 months? It seems. Is this per circuit?
So it's the process takes as long as it takes. The better you are at rewiring, that's why we come in, you have a group provider to help you. Let me tell you the most common one. People come in and for the first 2 or 3 weeks, they just learn how to be super happy. So they learn how to use the resiliency pathways in their brain. So whenever they're stressed, they reach for their app and it takes 1 minute and they will get back to joy. And this is a little disoriented because they're used to being stressed. And the brain's habit or set point is to be in stress. And that's what we're moving up with EBT. We're going to have that habit to be resilient and enjoy. And then the program is all set up. It's been developed over 30 years. It just gives you exactly what you need when you need it. So you watch videos to go along the program. And so then you say, okay, I'm ready to rewire my first circuit. So let's say they say it's food. And so they say, great. And it could take 3 days. It could take 2 or 3 weeks. And let me tell you why. Can I share with you a little bit about what these circuits are about?
I would love to hear all about it.
So this is what happens. I had my food circuit and I had a message. I really needed love and I ate food. So the message in my brain is I get my love from food. Or it could be existence or survival or nurturing or whatever it is. But it's always to something that doesn't really work. So we keep doing it over and over again, even though it doesn't work. Now, some people will come in and they'll have a circuit that isn't that strong and doesn't have any other circuits attached to it. They're going to rewire their food circuit in 3 days. But as you well know, so much about food is about trauma. And so much about other substances or other ways of being in relationships is about trauma. So EBT teaches you this skill set, and some of your circuits are going to be like that little one that's easy to do in 3 days. But others are going to say, well, it's a really strong circuit. So
Ah.
I've got to actually counter it more times. Or it's
Mhm.
a circuit that has some clutter with it. Clutter means emotional clutter means some fear memories, maybe some other core beliefs. Well, if we let it go and just change the behavior or just change that one circuit, I get my love from food, it wouldn't be long lasting. And so your body will tell you if you've cleared the clutter or not. Because what it does, you all of a sudden feel free of it and you go on to the next stage. So it starts, you discover the circuit. Oh my gosh, that's why I do it. And then you notice if there's any fear memories that come up or any old thing, and you clear that you actually rewire them so you don't have to live with them. And then you say, hey, I cannot get my love from food. I get my love from inside me. And this is the spiritual part of EBT. Every single circuit that you rewire always comes back to connecting to the love and the spiritual connection and the goodness inside you. And this is scientific because what happens is what we need to do is use our thinking brain to connect with our emotional brain so we know what's going on in our body. And no matter what happens, we move through our emotions and come back to peace inside. Because when we have peace inside, our brain's connected, and our brain's connected to our body, and the two hemispheres of the brain are connected, and we're in optimal biochemistry, and we have this glow about us. We're feeling love, compassion, gratitude, hope, forgiveness, awe, and joy. And that's the way you can live when you raise your set point. So essentially, people learn the skills. So even now and then they'll have a little circuit and they know how to do that. And if they have a deeper one where they don't really want to go to a therapist or it takes so long and they don't really have any power, they want to learn the skills so that for the rest of their lives, they will be able to rewire anything that comes up and they're competent emotionally. And the emotional part of this, emotions are really just essentially biological contributors to how we are physiologically. They control their health.
Mm. Wow, that was a beautiful dive, and it makes me even more curious about this modality of healing. And I love that you said that this has been over time a 30-year development. And I'm curious in your own life, how have you like, you've obviously used this modality and shifted for yourself. And I know we've talked a bit about like food and that way, but have you seen it for yourself,
Oh,
making shifts and things? I would imagine, yes.
my gosh, I can't live a day without it. And even after people get raised their set point or are very competent, they often stay in an EBT group, but they just because taking that time to be with others that you can connect with is good, but also you teach it to your family and friends.
Mhm.
And so I had gone through 2 divorces. I
Mhm.
married the first time, really my childhood sweetheart, you know, and then I had another shorter term marriage. So I have 3 children. And I had been single for a number of years, and I am a very busy woman. And I finally decided, I'm becoming kind of weird. I mean, all I do is work. I know I love my work, but that's all I do. And so, what I'm going to do is not for intimacy, but for personal integrity. I'm not going to have my kids out there thinking, oh, that poor mother of mine, she's always working and she's always doing da da da. I am going to go out once a week and go on Match.com, and I'm gonna scrounge up a date, okay? Just Tuesday nights, the only day I didn't teach,
Uh-huh.
and, on the 4th time, I met the love of my life.
Mm.
His name is Walt Rose, and we both knew it, and we both knew that the heavens had opened up, and now it's how many years? 11 years later. But I'll tell you something, if well, I told him, I said, I do EBT 7 days a week. If you really want to date me, first of all, you can't be retired. He was semi-retired at the time. And secondly, you probably want to get into an EBT group.
Mhm.
So he had obesity. He was eating too much, drinking too much, taking all the medications for mental anxiety and all these different about 10 medications.
Mm.
And within 3 months, he had lost weight. By 6 months, he was only down to a medication for his heart that he had taken because he had a heart attack before. So essentially, he changed his whole physiology. But more than that, the patterns that you're in your relationship usually come from early life. And if you don't do a deep dive into your emotional brain to rewire them, even though you have a relationship that seems perfect, it will devolve into just the way the relationship had been before. I
Mhm.
know that I would not be married to this man if it wasn't for ABT because when I'm upset, he listens to me without giving advice. Can you imagine a man that does that?
They're few and far between.
I know. Because the EBT has rules. You cannot interrupt. And then I listened to him when he just had a big medical accident. He fell down a whole flight of stairs in this terrible area where there was all these rocks and everything. And he was laid up in a hospital bed for 8 months. It was horrible,
Mm.
and he was totally so, we've been through all that together, and he does EBT or he wouldn't have survived that. So we believe this is a basic life skill because it not only is like mindfulness or CBT, but it is the only one that gets to the circuits that control the chemicals that control our psychology and our health, and it works super quickly. Just 2 to 5 minutes and you are feeling great. So I would say definitely if I didn't I am happily married now. We're in love with each other. And also, we're big fans of EBT because I know that I would have left him or he would have left me.
Mhm.
Because you know what? We're strong personalities and we use EBT to get more love in our lives and to be more
Mm.
compassionate with each other.
Mhm. Well, I appreciate that personal anecdote and thank you for indulging my curiosities. That is so beautiful. And I also, like girlfriend to girlfriend, love that you had made that, uh, like, uh, that awareness came to you that I'm getting weird because I also have this thing for me. I'm like, if I don't go out and socialize or go on dates from time to time, it then makes me weird. Like I can't engage in a healthy way. So I've never heard someone else articulate that. So I just want to, go on a little tangent of saying thank you for that awareness and that beautiful personal note. And you also had mentioned how it brings you into joy. And I think one of my superpowers is I'm a very joyful person. Obviously, I'm not there all the time, but it is something that I really am obsessed with being within and finding that state of joy. And I've not heard of a practice that focuses on rising up to that level of like the emotional, spiritual expression. And why is it that joy is the pinnacle
Oh,
rather than
oh,
some other emotion?
that you're so right. You intuitively appreciated the goodness of joy. A few things that are really important scientifically, that evolutionary biology created a brain that was not about the stress brain, but about the joy brain.
Hmm.
The reason for that is what we do is
I apologize. There's an alarm that went off.
we think our way through life. We ignore our emotional brain, and the
Mm.
pathways in that brain, when you use it with emotional brain training, with EBT, just this simple skill set, is it takes you from any level of stress, not to a mediocre state, but to a state of joy. Now, the reason I say that is there's a famous neuroscientist, Antonio Damasio, who redefined what's called homeostasis, which is basic physiology that's pretty healthy. The goal of it is not to go to a calm state or a mediocre state. The goal of all our physiology is to get to joy. The reason is in that joy state, the two hemispheres in the brain connect together, the upper and lower together, and the body and the brain. And basically, there's peace from within. But
Mm.
also, what happens is that when you're in that joy state, you shut off all the stress chemicals. And if you just get to calmness or peace, does not do it.
Mhm.
There's another part, and this is really magical. I'm in part of a medical community, right? And I'm in the scientific world, and what they talk about is the stress response. But I care to reframe it and really change that definition. I believe the stress response is really the joy response. And let me tell you why. When you get triggered and you feel really terrible, let's say you're numb or you're depressed or you're hostile, all you have to do, get out the EBT app, process your emotions in a very precise way that's true for all people. So it's very easy to learn. And you break up all of that suffering and misery in those drives. The circuit goes away, and you float up to where the circuit is all about joy. So we have a natural ability. We are about joy. Stress disrupts our joy, but EBT gives us our joy back because no matter what state you're in, the natural way, if you process your emotions in this way, is to get back to that joy. So that's what I believe. Our essence is joy.
Mm.
Stress blocks it, so we're clearing away that stress.
Beautiful. I kind of have an unusual question. Um, has this led you into, I don't know what your spiritual practices are, but has this helped spiritual practices evolve or shift in a way if you had some in the beginning, or what has that been for you?
Yeah, well, it starts off that the emotional brain is the seat of the soul.
Mm.
And yet we want everyone to have EBT, so we don't talk a lot about the spiritual aspect early on because we don't have to.
Mm.
Because obviously, this a spiritual state is supreme connection, it is unending love, and it is power.
Mm.
And so, what we noticed in EBT early on, this is maybe 30 years ago, is people would come in and they would learn the basics, and then of course we have a series of courses because you want to raise the set point and you have to do it slowly. Okay,
Mhm.
so they're going through, they get the basics, say, "Oh, I stopped overeating." They said, "But I'm not really done, am I?" I said, "No, you're not really done." So then they go on to the next course, and by the time they're in the third course, maybe they're 2.5 months into it, something happens as the
Mm.
set point goes up. What happens is they say, you know, I'm starting to be really nice to people that I actually watered my next door neighbor's plants. That is not me. That is not me. So what's happened is biochemically, they're in that state of connection. What it's done for me, I've always been a very spiritual person. What it's done for me is made me cry a lot, cry happy tears because it's a confirmation of my belief in the goodness of life. I personally believe in a personal God because I talk to God all the time, um, and and the science goes together with the spirituality. Let me tell you why. There's 5 levels of stress in the brain. Okay, so When you're at brain state 1, the top of your brain is involved and you are feeling absolutely great. You're in that joy state. 2, feeling good, but not really rewarded. 3, you're starting to get into the stress. And then 4, definitely stressed, and 5, stressed out. So 5 levels of stress. We call them 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And when you're in brain state 5, you are almost in hell. And when you're in brain state 1, you're almost in heaven. But this is what's so beautiful. Our society is obsessed with control. We have to control, we have to write food down, we have to check our exercise, we have to, I mean, it's like we're 2-year-olds. We have to control every single thing, okay? With
Yeah.
EBT, the first thing we say to you is, would you please stop trying to control things? What you're gonna do is, if you're not in joy, you're gonna reach for your app and you're gonna spiral up. But here's the magic, and I just did a video on this, so it's a good time. What happens is, if you actually just listen to your body and notice when some circuit's activated that's putting you more toward a 5, and you use EBT, you unlock that circuit. So all of those bad memories, all of those faulty expectations, they come alive. The synaptic connections between the neurons are fluid. And if you just stay present to the love inside of you, what happens is you get a huge rewiring just because you were stressed. Now, if instead, when you felt that way, you went and ate or drank or complained or did whatever, you lose the opportunity to have a spiritual deepening. But what happens is those terrible circuits end up getting weaker, and then something beautiful happens. And in EBT, we call it, after the 5 comes the 1. If you stay connected to the love inside of you, you go inside and trust the goodness of life, right in the midst of all that information to the contrary about how terrible everyone is and how terrible we are. Within a few hours, and definitely within one day, you will be at a bright, shiny brain state 1, and whatever you ask for in that state of 5 is there and more. 100% reliable in my life, because what it looks like is the spiritual as well as evolutionary biology are asking us to pay attention when life is really hard. That's when we find out who we really are. What do we really believe? Who do we really want to be in this world? And when we stay with love, not judgment, and connection inside instead of outside, what happens is the heavens open up and miracles occur.
Mm, mm. I love that so much. That falls in line with a lot of my own personal practices and experiences. And it's really beautiful to know that this is a time tested modality that is leading people right into, like, leaning into their growth edge, which is that strong, like, heavy, stressed out, like near hell state, right? Or even the layers above it, right? And then leaning into the essence of joy and love. And I love that so very much. And I am additionally curious about the books that you have authored. And I know that you have a new one that has been recently published. If you would love to speak about any of them, that would be extremely nourishing.
I would. Well, the most recent book is 1, 2, 3 Joy, and it's about weight loss and how to lose weight without taking diets or drugs. But it also is an overall picture of the latest science and practice of EBT. It's called 1, 2, 3 Joy by Laurel Mellin. The best way to get involved in EBT is just we have a whole portal that's been developed over the last 12 years. So it's kind of a Disneyland for emotional joy and transformation. So what you do is, we only let people in if they have a successful membership. In other words, we're not going to give you an app because we know that the app will not work unless you have that that safe, warm community with a lot of excitement and insight and fun. So you have a membership. It's $89 a month. For $89 a month, you get the books, you get the app, you get your own private little group to call in for a half an hour every week. 5 other people, a private group. So you are like a happy family, each helping each other raise their set point. This is not based on, I have this problem or that, I have that problem. Everyone wants to get their set point up. So it's all about growth and optimal health. And then every single day of the year, almost like a 12-step program, There's a complimentary drop-in group where there's a certified EBT provider leading someone through using this method, so getting from stress to joy. So if you sit in one of those groups, your emotional brain has no walls. You could be really mad at your spouse. You could have just felt really ashamed of something you said to your child, or you upset about a deadline. What happens is you go in that room, and it's a treatment because what happens is your brain changes just by listening. So you rewire just by listening to other people
Mhm.
and more. So essentially, this is a community of neuroscientific, emotional, and spiritual growth for optimal health.
Gosh, wow. Those are a bunch of power packed words all together. Amazing, glorious. Well, I am just so honored that you're here sharing this with us and sharing a bit of your personal story. And I have just a few more questions for you. And this one, as my regular listeners know, is my favorite question. I ask everyone this, which is Dr. Mellin, if you could go back in time and visit a younger you, to what age would you go and what would you say?
I would go to when I was about 15, and I decided to apply myself more to school. I'd been in and out, didn't know what I was going to do. And I would say to myself, don't work so hard. Trust the love inside of you. Follow your passion no matter what, but do it with ease and grace. You don't have to work so hard because the goodness is inside of you.
Oh, wow. That really, so beautiful. I'm crying right now hearing such a lovely message.
Thank you.
Mm, yeah, no, thank you. Well, the floor is yours. If there's anything else you'd like to share about yourself personally, your work, EBT, where
Uh,
people can find you, whatever is on your heart, I invite you to share.
the greatest thing is you can always reach out to me in my email. It's laurel@ebt.org. But the main thing is to appreciate that EBT is really scary because it's a whole new paradigm. We don't talk about thoughts or emotions or behaviors because biologically they don't exist. They're part of these circuits.
Yeah.
It's been completely modernized. And it's scary because when you first come in, you say, "You mean I have no problems? I just have circuits in my amygdala like everybody else, and I can pick and choose which one I want to rewire?" That's a huge amount of power.
Yeah.
And many people just say, "You know what? I'm just going to stay the way I am. Thank you very much. And would you please pass the cookies?"
Mhm.
But I want you to appreciate that every time we go for an external solution, it's not bad or wrong, but it blocks our capacity to deepen the love inside. And ultimately, on the day that we are no longer going to be on this earth, we'll look back and we'll say, what did I do in this earth anyway? How much time did I waste worrying about problems that really were just circuits I could have done away with? Did I really spend my time doing what I came to earth to do? And did I experience so much joy that I'm going to die now and I'm just going to combust from sheer joy? And
Yeah.
what that takes investment. That takes you saying, I matter, my life matters. I'm going to get the skills to rewire my emotional brain for such a state of love and joy that I give so much back to the world that my life will be complete.
Wow. And to me, that sounds like the ultimate legacy, to look back on life and have that deep, heart exploding experience. Wow.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, thank you. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on Her Drive and sharing this very powerful modality. I'm very excited to learn more. And for my Her Drive guests, you can just check the show notes to see links where you can find Dr. Laurel Mellin. And as always, I encourage you to please leave a review, share this with others, and just continue to spread the message that we are all on this beautiful journey together and here to encourage and expand. And thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Thank you. Love being here. Bye.